Part 2. Crimson Flower. Guardian Moon. The Master Tactician. Having crushed the Alliance's army and captured the Great Bridge of Myrden, the Imperial Army prepares to attack Deirdre, the Alliance's base of operations.
You're certainly not going easy on me. You fight like a mercenary, not a knight. You hunger for victory, pure and simple. You may not be aware of it yourself, but I see it. Indeed. Knights ought to have some hunger. I've always thought so. They depend too much on their swords. Only when they're wrested away do knights consider their hands and feet as weapons. That's not how it was for warriors of old. They weren't limited by their tools. Victory is what matters, not the method of achieving it. That's the attitude. I detect that in your style. It is plain to see. You may take it however you like. I believe the difference between us lies within that hunger. But where does it come from? From the start, I was aiming to win. Yet I couldn't defeat you. Then I remembered something you said before. Indeed. I was raised to value strength above all else. Whereas you had a reason, an ambition, pushing you toward that hunger. So tell me, what was the reason? Why were you driven to become so strong? Spoken like a knight. That's not what I would have expected. So that is the source of your hunger. I suppose I must find my own. If we're to get along, I think not. I'll be content if you continue to train with me. Perhaps it will come to me as I swing my sword.
Professor, what is your opinion of Claude? I can't help but wonder what sort of impression he made on you. Interesting. I've never thought of him like that. However, I know you have a keen eye for potential. After all, as leader of the Leicester Alliance, he has managed to protect his entire territory all this time. Since the beginning, territories within the Alliance have been split between those who support the Empire and those who oppose it. Claude has been acting as an intermediary between the two, essentially keeping the Alliance pacified. As both sides are of equal strength, he's created a situation which they've all agreed to avoid fighting each other and causing undue bloodshed. By carrying on as though the Alliance is united, he's minimized the Empire's influence there.
It's quite impressive how well his bold scheme has worked out. However, he is walking on thin ice. One wrong move and the Alliance will shatter. Speaking of Claude, Your Majesty, we should not delay in our invasion of the Alliance. It would seem that Claude has some fresh scheme up his sleeve, to no one's surprise.
Is that so?
Yes. The people of Deirdre have suddenly found it difficult to leave or enter the city. We can safely assume he is preparing for battle, but I am certain his plans extend beyond that as well. Do you not think we should take Deirdre at once?
Deirdre, the aquatic capital. A city floating on the ocean certainly poses a challenge. Since it's deep within Regan territory, we haven't had the opportunity to attack it directly. However, now that we have control of the Great Bridge of Murden, our situation has changed drastically. They can no longer expand their supply line into the Empire, and so we can finally attack Regan territory.
House Regan is not only Claude's house, but also the flagship of those who oppose the Empire within the Alliance. If House Regan falls, the other Alliance lords will be tripping over themselves to join us. That is why we cannot fail to take Deirdre. Fair enough. Claude will certainly be a difficult opponent. The leader of the Alliance has had many things said about him. They say he is unbeatable in a battle of intellect. I hear they call him the Master Tactician.
Thank you.
Professor. How are you doing, Professor? Would you care to join me for a cup of tea? It occurs to me that whenever we chat, I have a tendency to pester you with my questions and theories about your history. It seems only fair to speak on the topic of myself for once. And perhaps you might feel more positively inclined toward my research if I shared my own story. I am quite pleased to hear you're interested. Yes, quite pleased. Well, I suppose I should begin at the beginning, eh? I was born into a noble house of the Empire. Not a large house, mind you, but noble all the same. Our land holdings were small, but our bloodline was quite strong. So, as you can imagine, there were many of us in the family who carried the power of crests. I myself bear a minor crest. Our family's abundance of crests may be part of the reason I've been interested in the topic since I was just a boy. I dedicated myself to my studies, and after years of effort, I became lead crest scholar at the Empire's largest research institution. I had only Imperial blood, and thus Imperial crests, at my disposal in the Empire. So I came to Garrick Mach and devoted myself to my research during my time as a professor. My progress is slow, but with each revelation, I move ever closer to the answers I have sought for decades. Your cooperation as the bearer of the Crest of Flames ensures my research will continue to advance. In fact, it may bring me ever closer to the goal of uncovering everything there is to know about crests. I do hope you shall continue helping me advance in this field of study. Together, we will solve the mystery of your crest of flames, and our world will be the better for it. Shall we proceed? My lab instruments are fully prepared. I have a great number of tests I'm excited to carry out. No, don't worry. They won't hurt one bit.
That reminds me.
Yes? Oh, it's you, Professor. I was certain it was Hubert coming to drag me back to my duties. Your Majesty, you must know your supreme talents are needed at present. Why not gaze at these documents instead of the sky? Doesn't it? And the worst part is that he's always right, so I can't even argue with him. But that's enough about Hubert for the moment. While I have your attention, I'd like to thank you for your help in that last battle. As you well know, I'm perfectly capable of commanding the army by myself. However, when you're around, it's somehow different. I'm not sure I can properly explain it. I suppose your perspective on the battlefield is simply sharper than mine. When you're devising tactics and tricks for us, it's almost as though you can read the enemy's mind. There's no getting around it. Your talent for strategy far exceeds my own. I'm quite jealous, in all honesty. Is that a fact? Well, if you insist. I suppose a flower from another's field is always more beautiful. I'll admit, I think of you as rather detached, so to hear that you have emotions such as jealousy is something of a relief. I can't deny it. Ever since I underwent those procedures, I've certainly distanced myself from the ordinary world. Friends. That word somehow doesn't seem adequate. Besides, we've been friends for a long time, you and I. By now, we're so much more than that, at least in my mind. You know, instead of Edlegard, you can call me just Elle, if you so please. That's what my parents and closest sisters used to call me when I was little. Now there's no one left who calls me Elle. But with you, well, I think I could allow it. In fact, it would mean a great deal to me. Why? Well, you have stood beside me and shared my burdens. As I said, you are much more than a friend. In truth, you are like family to me. I suppose that's why.
Hey there. Professor? Professor!
Hey, Professor, something's been bothering me. Remember that suspicious guy I chased after back when I was a student? A knight scolded me for it, but at the time, I really thought I was doing the right thing. Now that I've had more experience on the battlefield, though...
I've been looking for you. There isn't much time, so I'll keep this brief. The knights encountered a band of brigands while out marching. It was hard fought, but we prevailed. Our soldiers are highly trained, but the enemy was formidable, and we weren't expecting combat. There were a number of casualties among our troops. There is something I wanted to bring to your attention. The brigands all bore identical tattoos of a scorpion on their arms. Please keep an eye out for that mark in the future.
Oh no.
Don't mention it. If you'll excuse me, I need to get back to my duties.
Heck of a coincidence, right? As soon as I mention that suspicious guy, this happens. But some of the knights died in combat. They died because of what I did 5 years ago. This is my fault. If I'd stayed quiet and tracked the guy down like you said, we would have stopped those brigands sooner, and I wouldn't have blood on my hands. But he probably wouldn't have. Now those knights, they're not coming back. We both know it. This is all my fault.
Professor. Professor, have you been looking for me again? I am very busy, you know. I must insist that disruptions for light-hearted chats of this kind be kept to a minimum. What did I tell you about falling victim to such salacious and slanderous rumors? As I've told you, there is obviously a conspiracy against me. There is no manner in which I could possibly be considered bothersome. Professor, I assure you, you have been deceived. My adversary has poisoned the hearts of these ladies against me. The plot goes deeper than I thought. But if you truly do insist, please understand, Professor. I am not some scoundrel out for conquest. I am attempting to fulfill my duty as heir of House Gloucester. It is my responsibility to continue our noble line by finding a suitable lady to be my wife. It is a rigorous process. My family has the very highest standards for appearance, grace, temperament, and pedigree. Typically, yes, even if others are sometimes critical of that notion. For the nobility, marriage is not merely a union of individuals, it is also a union of families. It would not benefit House Gloucester to be tied to a family of powerless commoners, would it? To achieve supremacy, it is necessary for my line to be tied to that of an influential family. That is the best path to peace and prosperity for all of Fodlan. So as you can see, the fate of the whole world rests upon my shoulders. It is nothing out of the ordinary. Those of us with noble blood are born to this duty, you know. That being said, to avoid misunderstandings, I shall restrain myself until things calm down. I would rather not cause trouble for you after all. It seems I am discovered. suppose that means assassination is out of the question. At least for now. Merely keeping an eye on you for the moment. Nothing to be concerned over. Unusually watchful. Difficult to steal upon in slumber. Perhaps an odorless, tasteless poison. Lady Edlegard certainly took interest in a difficult one this time. I suppose that question does warrant a response, considering it may mean your life. The answer requires me to explain some of the complex internal politics of the Empire. Are you familiar with Volkard von Arundel? He is Lady Edlegard's uncle. You may also know him as Lord Arundel, the Empire's regent. Many years ago, he took Her Majesty and fled to the Kingdom of Fargus. Then after a time, he returned to seize power. Together with former Prime Minister Ire and my father, Lord Arundel rendered Emperor Ionius IX politically impotent. Lady Edlegard is Ionius IX's daughter. I cannot begin to fathom the depth of her sadness at his betrayal. I see something of Lord Arundel in you. When I look at you, I feel I can almost see a second self lurking beneath the surface. It is as if you are in constant dialogue with something inside your heart. Something with desires very different from your own. Does that description feel familiar to you at all? Because to me, you seem unpredictable. As though you could turn traitor at any moment. The more I learn about you, the less I like. I had thought you might be of use to Lady Edlegard, but now I am beginning to think you may, through no fault of your own, present too great a risk. I hope you will prove me wrong, Professor. I would hate for this to come to bloodshed.
Hey, Professor, got a minute? Look, I'm sorry I snapped at you. I didn't mean to lose my temper. I was rude to you. I should have known better. Huh, I thought you might say that. In that way, you're just like Captain Gerald. You accept other people. You don't let petty details get under your skin. Well, when I was a kid... Professor? This may seem a bit sudden, but I want to thank you, Professor. That is, for letting me live my life the way I want. I've noticed you've been giving me fewer of those soul-revealing gazes lately. I appreciate you making an effort to not trouble yourself over who I spend my time with. Well, of course. Did you think I wouldn't notice? It's kind of sweet in its own way. Professor, may I tell you a story about when I was younger? I was an orphan, living in the back alleys of Enbar, until one day I was overheard singing. That was when my new life began. I was suddenly a songstress in the Middle Franc Opera Company. Performers, nobility. I met so many people. But none of them ever really knew me. I was just some young, pretty girl who could sing. A spectacle to be admired. Even though everyone praised my looks and my voice, and they showered me with gifts, I knew one day I'd be old. My looks would fade, my voice would change. I wouldn't sound the same. And I started to wonder, when I did get old, what would I have left? I'd be old, alone, and back on the streets of the capital, right where I'd started. That's sweet of you, even if you are just flirting. I never had much to begin with in life, and I worry that one day I'll be that way again. That's why I keep searching for someone who will love me. Someone unaware of the songstress, who can love a girl that used to be scared and alone on the streets of the capital. I wonder if such a strange person can even exist. Professor?
Please take my apologies. I lost time while I was training. War is life and death. Training has great importance. I will keep training now. I hope your night is good. I need to have more training. There are things that I have not done yet. Things that have to be done. For the future. I have to try with hardness. Training, studying, socializing. I will not always be having time to do those things. And speaking the language of Fodlan, I worry I will never be doing it just right. Why? Because the position of Bridget is weak. Fodlan and Dagda are big. Bridget is a small island in the middle of them. Bridget has great beauty, but little power. We will not survive unless we get more strength. I will lead Bridget, and so I have responsibility. I have to have more strength than anyone. Having more strength than anyone might be impossible, but I have to give it my best try. I am an ally of everyone, and I have belonging with our squad. That is also why I try with hardness. You can always be counting on me. But you should know that one of these days will be when I return to Bridget. Before that day, do not try stopping me from trying. And please, keep watching over me. With you, I can try with more hardness than I could alone.
Right.
Hey! Oh. Professor. Hey, Professor. Did I ever tell you what happened with that thief? You know, the book thief we encountered in town. I went after him, and I did manage to catch up, but... Oh no, I captured him easily. I'm pretty quick on my feet, you know. But I decided not to make him pay for the book. My pockets were pretty empty after that incident, if you want to know the truth. Well, what happened was, when I caught him, I asked him why he stole the book. He said he thought it would fetch a good price and that he really needed the money. He had a sick kid and couldn't pay for medicine. Oh, maybe you're right. But if he really did have a sick child, that would be a matter of life and death. A little money is nothing compared to that. I'd rather believe a lie than risk someone's life if I'm wrong. And to be completely honest, there was a time when I wasn't so different from him. It was a long time ago, and I've put all that behind me now. But yes, I was. My parents died of illness, so I had to provide for my little brother and sister. I did my best to earn money for them legitimately, but I wasn't able to bring home enough. So I turned to thieving. From people on the streets, from shops, even from soldiers. I knew it was wrong, but seeing my brother and sister's smiling faces made me too happy to stop. I really regret that part of my life. I was stupid. But shortly after I turned 9, I crept into a local noble's mansion, aiming to steal whatever I could get my hands on. The noble had all sorts of valuables, but what really caught my eye was a book with a fancy cover. That book was Lug and the Maiden of Wind. The knight in the illustrations was so impressive I just couldn't tear my eyes away. Well, that was part of it, but certain books are also really valuable, you know. You probably see where this is going. Moments after I grabbed the book, I was caught in the act by the noble. And that noble was none other than Lenato. But Lenato was incredibly kind. Without asking any questions, he gave me the book, and money too. When I told him I couldn't read, he invited me into his mansion, along with my brother and sister. He taught me how to read, personally. So, with the thief I caught in town, I was trying to do the same thing, to be like Lenato. I want to make up for the bad things I've done, to leave this world better than I found it. That's why, even if it wasn't easy on my pockets, I'm proud to say I helped him. I know what you're trying to say. My contribution probably won't change much. And it's not like I have the money to help everyone who's suffering from poverty. Even so, I can't bear to stand by and do nothing. What else could I have done, Professor?
Hi there. The Tide of War. I wonder why that could be.
So, I hear Claude's in.
To tell you the truth, I ran away ever since she started.
What the?
Well, it's just. Oh well. Thanks so much. What is it? Did I do something wrong? Thanks so much. Not cool yet. Yeah. sounds great.
So, I hear Claude. He does whatever it takes to win. I can't wait. I thank you. Why am I here? I thank you. Not bad. Yes. I see. What? I see. Yes. I see. I'm glad I was born into a family of soldiers. I've been wielding a sword for as long as I can remember. Wait a minute. Thanks for your hospitality. So...
I'm happy when we win battles, and I'm always relieved when our friends make it back safe. On the other hand, it's hard to watch the enemy die. Even worse when it's someone you know. Perhaps it would have been better if I'd just stayed with the opera. You're right, Professor. I'll never regret the choices I've made. Now you just have to lead us to victory, so everyone else can let go of their regrets too. Why, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, Professor. Why, thank you so much. How warm. Yeah. 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 That was... Why, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Why, thank you so much. Smells good. Yeah. Incredible. Yeah. Incredible. That was a lovely cup.
Drew. If we're going, I wish it wasn't to wage war. Yeah? Maybe you and me? Drew.
Professor? Right.
Hey,
Yes. Judith of Death in another life. I might have fought by her side. As harsh as that is, it's... question. As good a reason as any.
Professor.
This should be suitable.
I think I've got the idea.
Another skill refined.
Now to keep polishing. Professor.
Can't let this power go on.
Growth sustain.
I'll do my best with it.
How best to use this?
Now is the time to master this.
Making strides. Making strides.
Professor.
Can I use this off the battle?
I'm getting the hang of it. I'm finally grasping.
Perseverance is the key. Let's see it in action.
It's all instinct. It's almost time to depart. Are you ready? A promising answer. Whatever happens, never allow your foe to see any weakness. We must pay close attention not only to Claude's schemes, but to the man himself. He's a master archer who wields the legendary bow, Fail Not. He won't fall easily. It's the relic of House Regan. That bow once belonged to one of the 10 elites. Professor, do you know the true story behind the legend? The relics were created by the hands of mankind. Saros collected them after killing the 10 elites. Saros manipulated the people of the world and defeated the all-powerful King Nemesis. That's the history the Church of Saros maintains. In reality, it was little more than a simple dispute. Should the one leading the people of the world be someone with humanity, or a creature that can merely masquerade as a human at will. In the end, Saros was victorious. The Immaculate One and her family then took control of Fodlan. I know this because that knowledge is passed down from Emperor to Emperor. And that is because the first Emperor is the human who cooperated with Saros, allowing humanity to be controlled in secret. Perhaps it's fate that you can wield the sword of the Creator, just like Nemesis, the King of Liberation. And that very fate will lead you to use that sword to stand against those who would distort history.
It seems they've set out from Garreg Mach, and that's sooner than expected. Losing the Great Bridge of Myrddin was a serious blow. So is the fact that Teach is still alive. On top of all that, Judith. I told her to run if things look grim. Damn it. So many people will die, and by my call.
And what of it? Would you rather turn tail and run back home?
Nadir, you're really getting on my nerves. Do you have any idea how much of the Alliance adores me and believes in me?
Well, I suppose it's quite a lot. Does that mean that...
Yes, the plan is a go. I'm counting on you, Nadir. We'll make a good show taking down those who would assault Deirdre.
People say our kind may not always win, but we never lose. Let's teach them the real meaning of those words.
Now then, let's see what you're made of, Teach.